The following is an America Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Welcome to What's the Story? My name is Janice Hermsen, and I am your host. Oh, my goodness. What a day today, huh, guys?
Hi.
So here we are today, and it is actually kind of cold considering everything. And so I am looking forward to our guest today.
She's related to cold, so I'm picking up on that.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it is an interesting day. I think that it's going to be entertaining. Let's put it that way, right?
I think so. I mean, there's fascinating stuff going on.
There is. We have so much going on that hopefully everybody out there is having a good day. We had a little snow this week. That was interesting.
It's really nice on the mountains. It belongs there, you know. And
my cousin wrote to me or texted me and said, don't send the snow my way. She's in Wisconsin. She gets real snow.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the mountains were nice, and my grass got a little taste of some water.
Oh, that's nice.
It was really nice. I trimmed my yard up. It was all pretty perfect.
Good
for bad weather.
Yeah, well, I had to call my son-in-law and ask him to come over and shut off my water because we weren't prepared for it getting cold so fast at night. So I wasn't ready for that.
You didn't even miss me.
We always miss you.
So
Come
one thing about the cold weather and sprinkler, freezing and all that stuff, we're talking about that, not fires.
Yes, that's true. That's true, Mr. Fire.
With that being said, I looked on the weather report. There's still 9 wildland fires in California. They're getting winds, and they still have dry air.
How about that?
Yeah. I thought that was kind of unique.
There's our
this
fire report for today.
Yeah. Southern California, this is their fire season, October, November, and December. That's when they get the Santa Anas, which, for those of you not from Southern California, Santa Ana is a dry northern wind.
There you go.
That blows like crazy.
That blows like crazy, right?
I don't know, though, right? If you live around Reno, I lived in San Diego off and on for 10 years, and in that, it doesn't blow like it blows here, man. It doesn't blow like this.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the wind here is just ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you, how much snow did you get at your house?
So, half an inch. The grass almost got covered.
Yeah, we were completely covered. We got about an inch. And the thing that amazed me is it lasted about 3 hours. I looked out there. Wow, it's still coming down.
Yeah, that was kind of fun, though. It was kind of nice.
It is.
Yeah.
I love this time of year.
Very nice. So I'm going to see if our guest, we have Maria Zack, who is going to be with us today. I don't know if she's gotten checked in on our Zoom yet, but we'll find that out pretty quick. And she has a very interesting story. We are What's the Story? Our word for today is eclectic, in case you guys didn't get my email. And I think that as a show, we're quite eclectic.
No doubt about it.
See?
Oh, he did get it, and he's got all his stuff ready to rock. How about that? Good for you.
You were just trying to make me look stupid.
Do you really want me to respond to that?
I know that's an easy job, right?
No, you're a smart guy, Doug. You're a smart guy, and we have a book that's going to be coming out here tomorrow.
A what?
A book? Whose book?
Yeah.
Whose book would that be?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't hurt each other running to the bookstores.
That's right. That's right.
Well, actually, Well, try to hurt yourself.
So are you doing like a book signing and having like the skylights like back in the day with the big X and the skylights crossing?
But due to the economic environment we're in, it'll be flashlights. And I have my 2 boys out front shining up in the air.
Nice.
Funny.
I was just saying you'd have those lasers, but the police might get you. They'd like be in the plane in the way.
That's so funny. You guys are great. And so I asked you guys to watch a video, and did you have time?
I did. No, I didn't have the time. I watched it anyway. It gets back to this. You know, when you're on the air and you're talking to you don't know how many people, you really kind of try to be prepared. Well, that's where I find myself, and I thought it was very interesting.
It's almost better to be naive sometimes than a little bit prepared.
Yeah.
I've lived my life there.
But it was very fascinating.
Yep.
It is. It is fascinating.
The concept that we're looking at, I was invited to a couple of phone calls with Maria Zack, and I will be perfectly frank, my initial conversation or listening to the group call that I was on was kind of unbelievable for me. And but then Maria released who the person was that she was talking about, and there was a little bit of more questions. So I'm kind of setting you up. I'm going to bring Maria on. We only have a minute. Maria, welcome to What's the Story?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So we were just talking about you a little bit. I'm not going to let you talk too much right now because we are going out of this segment. We got only a few seconds left here. But when we come back, Maria Zack is going to share her story, which is a really fantastic story and references to the video that I was talking to these guys about. And we're going to kind of share with you something that just seems quite unbelievable to me. But, you know, what can you say? The unbelievable is here. This is a world that is so strange right now that it's hard to know what's true and what isn't. So when we come back, Maria Zack, Nations in Action, will be with us, and we're going to share her story. We'll be right back.
Wake up, the sun below. Got another road to sow. Let the fire feel the hope swelling up from the depths of my soul.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. This is What's the Story? My name is Janice Hermsen. I am here with my 2 co-hosts, Ed Noel, Greg, how did you become Greg? Doug Ashby, and our wonderful engineer, Shanimal. And we have on Zoom with us today, Maria Zack. So if you can, go on to Facebook, the What's the Story page. And later on, this will be posted to other outlets, including YouTube, for as long as it lasts. And Maria, you have lasted a long time on YouTube on my channel.
Yay. Well, we have a lot of good things to say, so God must be protecting us.
There you go. There you go. Today, though, you have a story that is pretty incredible and kind of unbelievable. I just want to say that outright. So I want to have you start off first, as usual, talk about who you are, you know, how you got to where you are, and then start giving us a little background on this incredible story about a shadow government.
Excellent. Well, I'm thrilled to be with you guys and certainly love telling the story of how government really functions. I actually have a bachelor's degree in political science and can tell you when I was learning about coup d'etats and at Florida State University, and a tow missile cost $10,000 back then. I never thought I'd really have to know either one of those facts personally. And apparently that degree is coming in handy along with my 30 years experience having a consulting firm and working for a Fortune 5 company and also running political campaigns on the national, state, and local levels. So I've been involved in hundreds of campaigns. I've been involved in the government affairs world, and I've worked for the Florida legislature. So I guess you could say I learned all sides of things. I've worked on the House and Senate side in Florida. And 4 years ago, I just knew things were really wrong. We were given some information about 5 years ago that Soros was moving in, and there were some major inroads being made to take down America. And God just called me to hang up everything, fund this group, Nations in Action. And so we started, and I'm thrilled with the team and the work we've done. It's been an incredible journey to bring truth and transparency to everybody. It's a tragic turn of events of what has taken place to see our government absolutely be hijacked and our White House down. And what you are seeing is not real. And it is unbelievable that they got away with this. And now the question is why, how, who did it, who paid for it, and what do we do to get it back? And that's what we've been working on at nationsinaction.org.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I like the way she summed it up. How do we get what we had back?
Right.
I like
Right.
that. That's certainly an excellent goal.
And when you say what you're seeing is not real, can you kind of expand on that?
So currently, when you watch things in the political world and the election, as many people who were surprised on a call that we had with our volunteers way back, and I think it was the first week of January, they were stunned to hear me say that we knew who stole the election. It was Leonardo, a defense contracting firm out of Italy. And I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. And then to know exactly how things progressed to Leonardo to be involved. And I kept getting information from Italian intelligence services and folks that started reaching out. And I discovered that people in their own countries could no longer even trust their leadership because their countries already had fallen. And so they had nowhere to go. They couldn't go to our embassy for help because they knew things weren't right there anymore and that our government had become corrupted. And so I kind of had this heads up along the way over the past 4 years. And then certainly by November, with our work in Georgia and Wisconsin and all over, we actually now lead into Italy did it. And we're like, hold on a second, is it Italy? It's not really Italy. Yes, Leonardo, which is owned 30% by the Italians, and the Italian government helps in oversight. But in all sincerity, it was the guy Stefano Serafini meeting with General Graziano, going over to Leonardo, bringing in people to go use mil-spec software to use their satellites. And so that was pretty unbelievable. But oh my gosh, President Trump didn't think so. He asked the Department of Justice for an investigation. And guess what? On December 26th, Mark Meadows sent that letter that is now infamous of unintentionally being exposed by the Democrats in the Senate who were trying to entrap him on a January 6th FOIA request of getting his records open. And in actuality, they discovered this note that, oh, the president's requesting the DOJ, the head acting director, actually investigate Leonardo. And guess what? They laughed it off, never did it. So the media, mainstream media especially, it is so despicable because they are saying Trump is lying about the election theft, that it didn't happen. Well, how can you say that and then report about this letter that actually proves they didn't even investigate? So lies, 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 and they're bought and paid for lies. So now we know a whole lot more to the story because our investigation continued and spiraled into discovering the shadow government in full swing and capable of taking down governments. And this time it was our turn, and we were the final crescendo.
So can you explain a little bit, when we talk about a shadow government, can you explain a little bit about what that is, who runs it, that type of thing?
Sure. So in 1933, Smedley Butler, who was a major general in the Marine Corps, encountered the same thing happening where the military-industrial complex, along with billionaires, were trying to overthrow Franklin Delano Roosevelt. A lot of people don't know that from our American history, but you can look it up on Wikipedia. And it's quite fascinating with the parallelism.
If they still leave it there. Right?
Yeah. So it's really amazing parallelism because today we are looking at the military-industrial complex that has been integrally involved with the billionaires who wanted to make a lot of money, and they like to control government and make sure that wars happen and funding happens to these companies, and it's become a $1 trillion industry. When President Trump got in, he did not want war, and he wanted to slow things down, bring troops home, and have peace, and that was opposite of what everyone else wanted. So this group was quite upset over this maneuver, and they, on the day Donald Trump actually decided to take troops out of Syria, is the day we are now told by a separate source that was the date that Leonardo engaged to help take down his presidency.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it is. And I think from the standpoint of Mr. Trump was probably more aggressive than our current president, though.
And more in control.
Well, definitely more in control, get that. But with respect to wars, it doesn't appear to me we're launching off into any lately.
Right.
Yes, it's interesting because the billionaires had to pivot recently, and they have not been quiet about this. It's not as unbelievable once you go back to the internet and see all the speeches by Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and many others who talk about vaccines and how much the $1 trillion industry that will be created by vaccines, and then their experimentation, and then there's a ton of footprint on COVID. And you start looking at all these items on the internet, and they all start to fit together. And once you figure out the pathways and the patterns that they created, it is really remarkable. People in Africa have been reaching out, elected officials and folks involved in the movement there. I've gotten many messages just over the past 24 hours since our big break in the news of outing one of our main sources on the shadow government. This has now gone viral globally because everybody knows something's very wrong in their countries. Something was wrong with COVID, but also with the control of their elected officials. And that's what everyone kept witnessing. Something's not right. Well, you're right, it's not. So these billionaires have been working for some time on viruses, testing on Africans, from what we are told, for some time, and buying and selling countries, which I didn't know that was a thing. But I was told if I had a few billion, I could go buy a country. They'd be happy to get one. And thankfully, I don't have billions of dollars and would never do that because I believe people should be free.
Wow. That's just the thought of it. A lot of this reminds me of the cartoons that we used to watch where, there's the big bad guy and, all of evil. And then you have the good guys and the fights and et cetera. But it's real. It's real.
Well, where are we in that spectrum?
I was going to say, are you linking like Big Pharma and the industrial military complex? I mean, I would, I guess. It seems like those industries are growing, right? And obviously Big Pharma runs this country.
So it's even higher than that. It's the funders of the corporations. So you're looking at Buffett, Bezos, Munger, Buffett's number 2 guy, Gates, Zuckerberg, Soros. Soros has been very outspoken for a long time about coming in, getting all the AGs replaced throughout every state. And then he came in with a program to take all the Secretary of State positions. So this is a man who hates what America stands for, hates our Constitution, and he has funded over 2,000 groups. So I'd kind of describe it as a pyramid shape. And in that pyramid, I would say, the bottom level are the NGOs, the non-government organizations, and the political parties. That's the lower level. For the NGOs, many are funded actually by us and taxpayers in America. And then they also have Soros and some of his guys funding to the tune of billions. The NGOs are funded through our National Community Service Board, and they're actually coordinating with a program out of our State Department from the Global Engagement Center to narc on you guys if you are posting something that they don't like. They now have a 24/7 number and a pathway so they can let Facebook and Twitter and everyone know you guys are the bad guys and need to be stopped and shut down. So that's how the process has been working. And certainly the political parties are on that bottom rung, and they have been hijacked and infiltrated by people that get put on retainers and contracts to do things. I talk to people all the time. One buddy was taking people to China to get to know, oh, China's not so bad, and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, and oh, Puerto Rico wants statehood. So all these members of the party, especially the National Committee man, committee woman, and your state party chairman of both parties have been funded by people, and they should have to be investigated. There should be information about the Soros funding in Georgia into National Popular Vote, where they hijacked the party and made sure they won 2 congressional seats and took Georgia down. So those trips were, I'm sure, quite expensive, flying people to California to learn about the Blue Line, massages, you name it, at the Ritz-Carlton. So these GOP activists all were taken out of Georgia on these trips and hoodwinked to go push something that's unconstitutional, National Popular Vote. So that's the bottom rung of where the corruption can occur. That next level is the deep state, where you're looking at the congressional members who are absolutely doing everything to take favors and certainly get stock tips and other things, and their priorities are not our priorities. As our representatives, they've lost track of every minute of their time should be spent on our priorities, because it's a representative government, not their priorities, and that of the billionaire class. And then the next level, of course, is the shadow government with the military-industrial complex and now Big Pharma. But then the head of the snake, there are 38 of them, 2 of which we are told are not so active. They work mostly compartmentalized, so they can pick and choose which issues they want to work on together, or they work separately. So Gates clearly was involved in pushing COVID, and our source gave us the exact information that he was asked to participate approximately 6 years ago in what today is COVID. And this shouldn't surprise anyone or be shocking, because guess what? There was a tabletop exercise at Johns Hopkins doing the same thing. And who funds Johns Hopkins Medical? Bloomberg, one of the heads of the shadow government, from what we are told. So it all interconnects.
Well, I appreciate your full description there. I think that I know your background, but maybe you can share with our audience a little bit. How do you know all of this? You're talking about Georgia. You're talking about all these places and how they put people into these different positions. How kind of explain to the audience your background on that, because if I were listening to you, I'd say, well, how do you know that? Right? I mean, seriously, I'd be like, wait, how do you know? Do I just believe you?
It's okay. I love when people ask me that, because I have a very extensive background that's actually very trackable and noticeable on the internet. My source keeps calling me, actually.
Is that what's happening?
Yes, my apologies.
I'm hearing that. And my engineer is like, what's going on here?
I think he's ready to be on the show. He's always got breaking news, so it's quite exciting.
Well, we'd love to hear from him.
Yeah, I've done that.
I know you have.
So,
Just teasing you.
So, he's done that on others. So I think it's important for people to understand. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a whole footprint. I've had my own government affairs consulting firm for 25 years. I've done business consulting. I've traveled to other countries on political issues. I've run a presidential campaign national office for Newt Gingrich for president. I ran a super PAC, Stand for Principle. And that super PAC actually put me in the room with Rebecca Mercer, Steve Bannon, and a man named Alexander Nix from Cambridge Analytica. Fast forward 4 years, and I'm getting calls from Italy where I'm writing down all these names on this board, and they go, Alexander Nix. And I'm like, hold on, I know that name. And sure enough, it's the same Alexander Nix of Cambridge Analytica that was seen in the office of Leonardo, the 8th largest defense contracting firm. So why would the man who had the software and got fined over the Facebook data abuse of all of our information, why would he be in a defense contracting firm's office in Italy? Doesn't take a rocket scientist there.
Right, right. So you said that your source was trying to reach you. Can you talk a little bit about who that source is? And I know that he recently came out and spoke on another show and shared some information that's pretty phenomenal.
Yes. So we've had many, many sources from many countries because the Intel guys are all looking for a way to get information out. They get it to people they know who get it to me, or they contact me directly. What we do is we try to vet it and we try to bring it to everyone for them to vet because we believe in truth and transparency. I want everyone to rip it apart, test it out, check it out. And I'm happy to say with this source, I knew him through multiple ways. And what is fascinating is he is a man who has a background in high finance, and he is out of France. His name is Philippe Argilier, and he's lived in America for about 20, 25 years. And his wife is American. His daughters are American. And he has a heart and passion for America and love for humanity. And he was a consultant to world leaders. And by doing high finance in construction and in Nice, and who his father was, he has an amazing legacy. His father was a freedom fighter, and his grandfather saved people from the gas chambers in World War II when the Nazis were rounding up the Jewish. And his uncle was the youngest first lieutenant under Charles de Gaulle. And so he really holds firm in his fight for freedom and liberty. So I love that he reached out to us because he was filling in some of the pieces we were missing in our investigation. And he provided us the validating piece on Italy, but then he also gave us the other piece about Syria. So that was a huge bona fide for us in having that discussion of what took place in Italy. But since then, he was explaining how the government really works. And it was things that I saw, but having 30 years of experience, I was very frustrated, obviously, as everyone is, of what's happened in our government. And you just can't figure out why are things really working this way? I know that most stuff happens in the caucus meetings, but this was different, and you could see it and feel it. So he said, look, it's about 60% of America's decisions in their government are held by the shadow government. Since America fell, I have others who have told me it is far worse today. So that is what is really, really surprising, how fast we are falling.
And Philippe contacted you, and you've been working with him for 3-4 months now. And what does that working with him look like, and what's the purpose of that?
So 4 months, day and night, to have him educate us on who is in charge of what and what the infrastructure is. He owned a data bank. Data banks are like an intelligence bank, like what NSA would have at Fort Meade. So, you have data contacts and information. So a lot of people have databases of transactions and they can tell things from it. Well, his data bank is pretty interesting because he collected contracts for infrastructure projects that he was working with these world leaders. Well, the world leaders would ask him, hey, we've got a G8 conference. And if you've ever been to World Leaders Conference, which I have, if you've been to one, it's the who's who. And he was helping put together this side meeting where the business was really happening. And that's what's fascinating, because in that side meeting, they were figuring out how to do some of these infrastructure projects that are massive, multi-billion-dollar projects, all behind the scenes. And none of their intelligence guys were invited into the room. And that's fascinating. So he was just collecting all the documents because that's what he was in charge of. And he started banking them away. Here's the package on this. Here's the package on that. And other people started building data banks as well, other consultants that were in the room for these global world leaders conference meetings. Well, he started to be privy to some of the shadow government trying to interfere in and come in on what their needs were. And he was like, whoa, this is something. So these other data banks, he wanted to buy them and set out a plan about 8 years ago to totally take down the shadow government. And he knew it would take a lot of work. And so he's slowly but surely been enabling whistleblowers access to his data bank who could expose the corruption. So many people saw things like the Panama Papers and then the Paradise Papers and now the Pandora Papers, all starting with a P. Isn't that coincidental? And so he wanted the truth to get out there, but he knew he needed more to take down this is a very powerful group. And so they have a tight grip on world leaders. And he bought on September 1st, he earned the rights to all the data banks, all 4. So he purchased them. And now he informed the shadow government leaders that he is moving forward to remove them from power. And they swiftly offered him $20 billion, and they offered me 5 million euros. His was euros as well. And I, of course, declined that offer because there is no way I will betray my God, my country, or humanity at this stake. And we marched forward. He had a big meeting in Cap d'Aille, the south of France, on Thursday with them, and they don't want to play ball. They don't want to back off and stop what they've been doing with COVID, et cetera. And he's giving them choices. And we're going to see how this all plays out. You know, proof's in the pudding. And he's got documents. He promised them to the reporter that he recently did an interview with. And I received those documents today. He reviewed them with me, so I can vouch for those documents, and I can vouch for other documents he's shown me in the past.
And I'm happy to share that Stu Peters, because I think that you should probably seek that out and watch that to get a real full comprehensive view and directly from the source of what that information is. So Maria, so what's your role in all of this? Well, you know, this is your story. What's your role?
So we're Nations and cover and turn over every single stone until we know what's happened to our country, the elections. But we, in the past 3 years, if you had asked me, we were doing Truth and Transparency, Good Government Accountability Act, things that provided zero-based budgeting and people to see and have their books audited in public. Because today is a different day with the internet. There is no excuse for government not to have everything online. But also we were moving to eliminate property tax because we understand how the infrastructure works in government and how they do their fuzzy government math. And we wanted to take things into a transition to let families own their homes and start choking the beast of the government of how much funds they keep taking from Americans and shift the funding source more to a fair tax.
All right. So we're going to take a break here pretty quick. And when we come back, Maria, I'd like to kind of, because that'll be our last segment, I'd like to kind of wrap this up and kind of figure out a little bit more about Philippe and a little bit more about what his intentions are. Because to be honest with you, when you hear this guy's going to, get rid of the shadow government, and I know from listening to the interview that he talked about having a parallel government and including Donald Trump in that. It sounds like, are we just trading one for the other? So I don't want you to answer that now because you don't have enough time. However, I want you to think about that because how do we not just have a trade-off of one superpower for another, or one group for another group? Where does our constitutionality come in? Where is that side of it that people can feel confident that, this isn't just one more of the same. All right. So hang in there, everybody. We're going to get some more from Maria, and she'll talk a little bit about Nations in Action as well. And then we're going to come back after that.
Call Sir Sick. Dental because you're worth it. They can make your smile perfect. You're gonna love your new smile. Sursic Dental for perfect smile. Sursic Dental has a $125 special that includes a cleaning, x-rays, a free Sonicare toothbrush, and a free cosmetic makeover consultation. Sursic Dental for perfect Call 827-1113.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Barbecue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Barbecue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
Businesses, writers, check this out. Go to lrpnv.com to get your printing, publishing, and professional services today. Need a virtual office? A place to receive and forward your mail with professional address and suite number for your business? Someone to answer your telephones? Want to rent a conference room for only $15 an hour? What about that book you've been wanting to have printed? LRP Printing and Business Center can do it for you, and they have a professional assistant on site daily, Monday through Friday. Just call 775-356-1004. Need copies, business cards, invoices, books, booklets, or graphic design to help brand you or your business? Just call 775-356-1004 or go to lrpnv.com. With a great selection of new and used books, you can get your printing done and a book to entertain you in your time off. And don't forget, you could have your business sponsoring the Book Hound radio show, just like Andrew Martoni, author of Little Man in the Map, does every week. Just go to lrpnv.com. That's lrpnv.com or call 775-356-1004. They'll provide solutions for your business and writing projects.
Sliced fresh sandwiches every day, made right before your eyes. The port of Sub's way could be a smoking number 5 or a classic number 8, or maybe an Italian is your number 1 fave. Whatever you crave, prepare to fall in love. Sliced fresh sandwiches, port of Subs.
Game day watch parties, special occasions, even those office lunches, Port of Sub's 6-foot classic sub trays make feeding your hungry gang easy. Our 6-foot sub tray, for just $50, will feed your family and friends with your choice of 3 different types of sandwiches on your choice of bread. And with 18 classic subs to choose from, you'll satisfy everyone. You can even choose to have your subs individually wrapped. Order ahead at portofsubs.com for takeout or delivery.
Whatever yummy number you're dreaming of. Sliced fresh sandwiches, Port of Subs.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ,
A Lotus broadcast station.
the power of radio since 1967.
Now she's gone like a
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. This is What's the Story? I'm Janice Hermsen. I'm your host. And we have been talking to Maria Zack, Nations in Action. And she's telling us a phenomenal story about a contact with a French gentleman by the name of Philippe. And I'm not even going to attempt his last name because I'm not as good as she is at it. And how, why don't we just come right out with it? He's going to save the world. Right? Maria?
Absolutely, but it's going to take all of us.
Yes.
And we have to understand first, identify what is the problem, where, who betrayed us, how did it happen? We're not having investigations by our Department of Justice at the level we need. Hillary Clinton walked. We saw things going way off the rails back then, and it just continued to fall. Donald Trump had, by my count, at least 5 coup attempts that occurred on him from the moment he was trying to get the nomination at the Republican convention. That was the first one. Second one was in the fall, and then the 3 of them at least while he was in the White House his first term. And when you look at who all was involved, it makes it even more cumbersome because he couldn't trust people around him. And so implementing tools to make sure we know who participated. It's important that affidavits be provided to every person who worked inside the White House, and certainly those in the State Department that worked in the Italian embassy. I believe that anyone who is close to Donald Trump should have to answer those affidavits and do polygraphs at the higher levels. I believe that this information as it's coming, it's kind of interesting if it's true that these data banks hold this information on these people and was leveraged by these bad guys and now is being handed over to humanity for good and to ensure human rights. This now pretty much takes the hammer over the head off of a lot of people who were sweating bullets having to do the bidding of some very bad people. So now the question is, are they willing to take the noose off their own neck of where they could come out and tell whatever sins it may be that they committed, so they depower the information? That would be a great thing. And I would hope maybe the Freedom Caucus or someone like that could lead this effort of congressmen saying, look, that, here's something I did. And, I asked for forgiveness. We used to be a nation of forgiveness and we're godly people. And I hope that everyone can reach down and say, look, you got a stock tip for a vote or whatever it is. And you really make that neutralized by doing things like that. But I can tell you that the hammer now being over the heads of the shadow government is what changed everything. And it's already in the works of how things are starting to unravel. The governor of Texas just called for COVID vaccinations not to be mandated in the state of Texas. And that made mainstream news. Now, everyone should be going, how'd that get on mainstream news all of a sudden? Oh, okay. And then how about Facebook? And Facebook went down, and Facebook's having some tough times, Mark Zuckerberg. And he called him out 2 days ago on Stu Peters and said, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't own Facebook. Should there be an investigation by Congress and our Department of Justice? Did DARPA really create Facebook? And did they really just hand it over to Mark Zuckerberg? I could go on and on with the list of all the activities that should take place. And it's my hope that we can work with Congress. We've been building a plan out for the real president, Donald Trump, and provide him a kit that will actually speed things along on who the enemies of state are and who committed treason from the information we have at Nations in Action. And we invite people to provide more information because it's been coming in droves. And then this information from Philippe Argilier in France, his parallel government, to answer your question, he's got to decide what he wants to do with his parallel government. But his parallel government and what he's done with humanrightsunity.org is very similar to what Canada would want. They already have socialized medicine and they're comfortable in their system. So he wants to keep a system of having more unity, more human rights, less finagling by the billionaires of getting out of taxation. And he's asked Donald Trump to come alongside with this agenda. Now, clearly, we have our own constitution. I would say we hold firm on our constitution. Human Rights Unity has 7 bullet points that I think, perfectly match what America stands for. The other 7, I would say, what does it mean in implementation? When you take a philosophy and you turn it into policy, the devil's always in the details. You can say you want a green planet. And, we all know that could mean what Obama and the others did of hijacking the green funds, all for their crony friends and for corruption. So the devil's in that detail of what does it look like. So if it's altruistically good, great. And I told him Nations in Action, although we didn't plan to serve as like a United Nations, but Lord knows the United Nations is as corrupt as the day is long. So we now have to stand in and start filling this gap of providing countries the great, view of what the Constitution really means. My 6th great-grandfather penned the Declaration of Independence. My family cherishes our Constitution. And I can tell you that we have to stand by these principles and put in bumpers to prevent the elected officials from going off the rails and certainly reining in all the regulatory environment of the bureaucracy who thinks they're in charge and put them back at bay.
Wow. That's a mouthful.
It's astonishing news. It really is.
It really is astonishing. And like I said, we had a call with Maria, and she shared this information a couple of times that I went through it. And then I heard Philippe on the interview with Stu Peters. And and still is pretty daunting to think that that's real. And any comments, Doug?
Well, I do. And listen,
I figured you did.
This goes back to what you said a few minutes ago. We're finding out that politics is a contact sport. I mean, it's not for sissies. And you had mentioned about, they tried to buy you off and this, and how the political landscape is littered with unexplained deaths. Do you feel threatened by what's going on?
I got one yesterday. It's like a daily occurrence. No, it's not daily, thankfully. I have had a few. I've had them in multiple languages. So I guess I've really arrived. And, no, I fear nothing, because fear not, it's not of God. And God's had me every step of the way. And our organization is very strong in our faith, and we will not stop. We are relentless, and we're his foot soldiers. And, it is a blood sport. And Molly McCauley, who from what we're told, was going to out that the satellites could be used to change votes in 2016, was murdered the day after Seth Rich. Oh, surprise, surprise. So how does that happen in a suburban Baltimore neighborhood? So when you guys say this is unbelievable, it's not unbelievable. Everyone I talk to around the world has been saying for the longest time, screaming for help. I get pleas from other countries. I've gotten one just now from Cape Town. This is important for everyone to understand. You're seeing it. You guys know this deep down because you've been seeing and reading about it on the internet. This has been happening long before even the Clintons.
I think that most of us probably know that it's happening. That isn't the unbelievable part. I think the unbelievable part is that a billionaire would step in and figure out a way to bring this down. I think that in our hearts and minds, we all kind of knew something was going on other than what was before us, because it just wasn't right. It didn't work right. We'd elect people. They wouldn't do what we told them to do. You'd elect somebody else, boot them, bring somebody else in, same thing happens. And the pundits would all be out there saying, oh, it's just politics. Well, enough of that, right? I mean, none of us bought it, but when you don't have any power to do anything and they say just vote, well, yeah, you vote, but, same thing happens. So I think the unbelievable part is Philippe. That's what I would say.
I would say, good people exist, and the majority, I would say 99% of the world are good people who will do what they can to fix this and are seeing things. That's why you're seeing whistleblowers all over the place. You're seeing people trying to speak out. And for him, he just happened to be in a position to financially help in a bigger way. And the question is, are there other billionaires who are willing to assist, and others, because it is a mammoth lift. And,
right.
Thank God for my team and all the volunteers at Nations in Action, because we would not be where we are today. And thank goodness for my husband, who's allowed me not to have a paycheck for the last 4 years and to fund this effort. And,
And with that in mind, please tell people how they can find Nations in Action.
Nationsinaction.org, O-R-G. And the latest video is on there, and we'll be adding more very, very soon. I believe Thursday night will be another. And so people will be able to learn and hear from Philippe. And General McInerney had just called me a little while ago, and he said, this is an answer to prayer. And it is. He has come forward, and he has been working on this. And many people tried to shut him down, just like here in America. He was shut out by social media for the past 2 years. If you look at his website, he actually is saying these things, that this has been happening. He didn't just come out. He's been trying to get the news out, but they've been making sure they censor him. So now we're in a whole new world, because that video 2 days ago just went around the world. And in France, it's the talk of the town. So
I'm sure it
really
is.
excited he has his voice back.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And I'm sure the people in France are hopefully proud of what he's trying to do.
Yes.
Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to let you go, Maria. And that's it for this hour.
Well, thank you for having us on again, nationsinaction.org, and God bless you guys, and look forward to the next interview.
You too, Maria. Rock on.
Thank you.